Hello, Sharron.
Hello, Adam.
Lovely to see you again.
And likewise.
I did see you yesterday, though.
Did we?
Did we? No.
I don't think so.
No, we talked
I
on
had
the
a day
phone.
off. It was great.
What? You should be working hard.
No. A day off from you.
Oh, lost touch, Sharron. But here we are again.
I know. And some great episodes. Great episode today.
Another ep, we
Another
call it
ep.
in the community. We call it an ep, Sharron.
In the podcast community.
that I'm not really a part of, but that's okay. What's happening today?
Yeah, we're going to talk as we roll into end of financial year.
Ooh.
Thought that we'd sort of focus on how businesses are going, getting to the finish line, and is it a good time to stop and reflect?
Whoa. End of financial year. It's come quick this year, hasn't it?
I know. Where has the year gone?
I don't know.
But God, it has.
Thank God. So I suppose it's one of those things where you look back and like what you said, it's what didn't work or where did we go wrong? I mean, that's probably a bit negative to say where did we go wrong, but it's important to reflect, or is it?
Wow.
Whoa.
Let's get into that. But I think today it is a good opportunity to we talk about the reset, the reflection piece, and today's really to go. It's a perfect time of the year as you're sort of wrapping up that financial year end. We're going to talk all things performance reviews, salary conversations.
Well, I've got some pretty opinionated opinions on that.
I bet accountability and all those things that a business it can use this time to have a look at all of those things, which we're going to cover today.
Great.
Let's start.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's get into it.
Let's start it. I like to go, how do we get better? How do we get smarter? And one of the ways that we can do that is to actually look at, to your point, let's take a look back and go, what didn't work? I think a business that can be honest with itself around what did we set out to achieve and did we actually achieve it? And more importantly, why didn't we achieve it is a really good start.
Totally agree.
Oh, you do agree?
Well, I agree. There's an honesty there's an honesty, right? And that's a really interesting a word to use, because you're going to have a whole bunch of things that you didn't actually hit, but you can make excuses for it and be like, oh, well, maybe we got here and maybe it was working, maybe it didn't. And I suppose for us, in our relationship, you're probably a little more honest and I'm probably a little bit more visionary, maybe we could put it that.
I think when we talk to our own clients at this time of year, we are prompting them around having that conversation in terms of what didn't get done this year. We're prompting them to say, did we waste time or money over the last 12 months that we perhaps shouldn't have?
Yep.
What looked like a good idea and perhaps wasn't. And I know it all sounds a bit negative, but they're the reflection pieces. And at the same time, we would also say, let's have a look at what did go well and make sure that we are celebrating success, because we often talk about, we spend all this time talking about the things that didn't go so well.
Yeah.
Actually, you want to take the time to also go, what did we nail this year and what did we do really well and how do we replicate that?
Correct. It has been said that maybe Juno celebrates too much success, but we're not pointing fingers or naming names, are we?
No, we're not. And I think a couple of other things that we're talking to our clients about at the moment is, were there things that you tolerated throughout the year that you shouldn't have? And were there conversations that you needed to have but didn't have, which we've talked about before in terms of those tough conversations. But they're all the prompts that we're using at the moment with our own clients and in our own business as we head into this time of the year.
Yeah, 100%.
And I was talking to a client just recently, as I'm doing with my own clients at the moment, and they've done that reflection piece already, and they've almost been a little bit down on themselves because they set out with 10 things to do for the year, and when they sort of looked back, they only actually got on top of 3 of those things.
Yeah.
So we've had a really robust conversation about why that happened. And what actually came out of that conversation was not that they didn't do a good job. It was they actually set out to do too many things over the course of the year and didn't really narrow down the priorities on what was achievable.
And that's the old. It's not lack of effort or trying. It's the lack of focus and definition, and it gets businesses unstuck all the time, because then what ends up happening is it goes into into a larger context, which is we were unsuccessful. And you go, well, you were unsuccessful at some things, but with some more focus and some more definition of what you were actually trying to achieve, you actually would have been successful. So you can have 10 things and not get any of them, or you can have 3 things and get them all.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that what came out of that conversation with this client was around, as we're going into the next financial year, and that'll be another episode. Another ep, sorry, not episode. We are talking about let's get some more clarity and rein in the focus, and it's okay to set out to do slightly less and really nail it. And you know, there are touch points throughout the year where you go, maybe you've done all those 3 things and you sort of start again and you sort of set more goals and whatever in the rest of the year.
And I mean, I'm pretty sure we're gonna talk about this, but that's like having the touch points throughout the year is important in itself. You know, waiting until the end of the year and seeing whether we've been successful or not. Some would say that that's probably waiting a little too long.
We'll get into that. So I think when we start these conversations, it's really about, and we talk about this a lot in the work that we do at Juno, bringing that clarity and discipline into reviewing what you've done. Is really important, and so we're having those conversations over and over again at the moment.
So I suppose reviewing. I mean, one of the big things about reviewing is performance reviewing and reviewing the staff, which I would say 99.9% of everyone that we talk to. And I was actually talking to someone quite senior lawyer that was doing staff reviews, and it's funny because you go, it's not something that anyone like jumps up and goes, yeah, I'm really excited to do this, because inevitably there's the good and the bad and the in the middle, and they're challenging. They're challenging conversations sometimes, and that's not something that people jump out of bed to do. And because of that, it's not something that people sometimes aren't confident in doing or they know how to do correctly. But I'm sure we're going to get into that now.
Yeah, I mean, I think the performance review, again, is a topic that we're having conversations with all of our clients at the moment. But with those conversations, it's not just about are we doing them, should we do them? It's about recognising why perhaps we've done them in the past and they haven't worked. What stops us wanting to do them? Why are we only having conversations once a year? Is this the only touch point that you've had with your team and your staff? So we're actually bringing those conversations to light as well, which causes its own complexity around leaders going, I actually don't want to do any of that.
And I mean, it sort of goes back to that sort of, like what we're talking about of looking back at the end of financial year. If you're only talking to your staff once a year about their performance, I mean, that is a really complicated scenario.
Yeah, and we will often talk about the frequent touch points and the benefits of doing that. And often the kickback for us is around, I don't have the time.
Don't have the time to chat to your staff to see whether they're doing a good job and give them advice on how to do a better job. It seems bizarre, doesn't it?
Crazy. But that is really what the pushback more often than not is. I mean, often people will blame time. Perhaps it's not time, it's fear.
Confidence.
I don't really want to have that, perhaps it's going to be confrontational and what have you. But to your point, we go, what is more beneficial than spending time on getting more out of your team if you can?
Yep, 100%. All right, performance reviews. Holistically. I suppose, the things that we discussed, you've gone over some of these things, which is, what we'll discuss is why most of them fail. I sort of, why the feedback shouldn't happen once a year, and we're pretty good at that. And leaders avoiding the difficult conversations. I think that there's sort of the three last things are the performance surprises, the coaching versus criticism, and the accountability. I would say that they're the 3 challenging ones that I would see most in the business, particularly around providing I don't want to call it negative feedback because it's negative in the context, but
Constructive.
Providing constructive feedback in a way that is constructive. And I know that sounds completely ridiculous, but there's ways to do it, and we still, we sometimes have to provide constructive feedback to our clients. They're not even our employees, and it's quite a challenging thing to do because you need to be able to understand the person. And in reality, when you're providing constructive feedback on something that is the first time someone has heard about that is challenging. So the best forms of doing that is making sure that you've had many conversations along the journey for when you do provide that, it doesn't come as a shock, because the shock then turns into embarrassment, and embarrassment turns into emotion, and emotion in a performance review. I mean, definitely there's sometimes, but it doesn't necessarily get the outcome, which is, I would say a performance review is if somebody is underperforming, then you want to provide them the information so that they can understand that, exactly what it is and exactly what they need to be doing in order to progress through the organisation.
I in a role many moons ago, I worked with the leadership team at the time on it's called The 1 Minute Manager.
Yeah.
It's a book. It's a really easy book to read.
Another book that I need to read that I'm probably not going to.
It's an oldie. I think it's Ken Blanchard from memory, but I could be wrong.
Yeah.
But what it was is that 1 minute manager was around when something happens, spend the minute to address it, both good and bad, right then and there. Yeah. So that when there is praise to be given, you've done a great job, do it at the time. Yeah. But on the flip side, if something hasn't gone according to plan or they haven't met expectation, have that 1 minute conversation at the time. So when you talk about, that performance surprise, there is no surprise.
Correct.
Because if you lead and manage in a way that everyone knows, celebratory and constructive sort of feedback, the review doesn't become a surprise because you've been doing that the whole way along, the whole year.
Yep. Why don't we sort of get into what good performance reviews actually include?
Yeah, I mean, we talk about this and we go, the first thing that we talk about is setting clear expectations.
Well, I'm such a...
you're a stickler for this.
Stickler. I'm like, it's the same as, coming to a performance review and saying you've done a good job or a bad job without even defining what the job is just, and it blows my mind. And then it becomes subjective.
Yeah.
It's like, do I like the person? Is that what I'm actually giving them a performance? I'm saying you're doing a good job because I like them.
Yeah.
And the issue with the subjectiveness of that is that the person having the review, so the employee, has no idea. They have no ability to demonstrate whether they've done a good job or not. And we see it so much in the types of work that we do, which is doing a performance review for the sake of doing a performance review. Not having clarity on the role, and then just having a chit-chat coffee. I mean, that's ticking a box. That's not actually getting value from the whole reason why you do a performance review.
Yeah, and I think that when we talk about setting clear expectations, it's about, and I mean, it doesn't have to have all of this, but we would go, there is role clarity. I actually understand my role and what's expected of it. The next step around that is setting measurable KPIs that are attached to that role. So not only do I understand what my role is, I understand how it's going to be measured and what success looks like. And I think those two things alone, done well, gives you that clarity around the expectation.
Yeah, totally agree. And they need to happen before the performance review, right? So you got to implement that. And a good thing is that if you're having a performance review and you're reviewing them on how much you like them, you need to go back and redefine their role, redefine their KPIs, and redefine the data that you're drawing from that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that what I've found over the years is one of the biggest frustrations that people have is they don't understand what's expected. So to your point, and if none of those tangibles are in play, then how would they understand?
Yeah, it's I mean, we're going to get to salary soon, but I've got another story about that.
And I mean, interesting. I mean, we're talking performance here, as in reviewing one's performance. We're not even talking about the salary that's attached to that.
Number 2. Honest feedback. Sharron, I'm going to let you talk about this because you're probably the queen of honest feedback.
It's really interesting, and I mean, I guess we talk about this a lot, and I don't think that I'm any more honest than the next person, but it's only feedback that I get from people that go, oh my God, you are fucking, like you're brutally honest actually, to the point of sometimes, God, can you just keep that in your head sometimes?
Yeah, I think it's, I mean, having worked with you and known you for long enough now, I would say you are, a lot of people, and I do somewhat as well, they shy away from having a challenging conversation and getting to an end point because it's uncomfortable, right? And whether you find it uncomfortable or not, you want to have that conversation to resolve it. I mean, probably from your book you read, your 1 minute, whatever it is. But I go, that's a skill to have, and it's a uniqueness, and that's what makes you a good leader. Is people know where they stand with you, and that's a really admirable quality to have because that's what you want.
Yeah.
You want people to understand. And there's a whole bunch of framework and all those kind of things, but it's, the honest feedback, the timeliness of the feedback, which is what we talked about, the consistency, the clarity. When you hear some people giving feedback and that don't know how to give feedback, it's kind of wishy-washy. It's not on point. It's not specific.
Yeah.
Because they're not confident in that.
Yep.
And that's okay. And it's probably a learned skill up until a point, but if you want to manage teams and you want to manage high-performing teams, you've got to be able to do that. And particularly when it comes to a review, you've got to be able to give that honesty in that.
Yeah. And I think that being able to be succinct about what you're talking about lends itself back to if there is clarity about the role and we are really clear around, and I'll use a really easy example from a sales perspective. You need to write $1 million in sales to be successful in your role. It's a really easy conversation to have.
Yeah.
Have you achieved it, yes or no? What stopped you achieving it? So, I mean, it's quite tangible. I think, and when I'm talking to my clients about how to have those honest conversations, I'm like, it's okay to script that. You don't have to, because what I find happens, and as I've coached a lot of people through this, they feel like they need to fill in gaps and then they need to talk broadly around the discussion point. And I'm like, you don't need to do that. And that's actually what gets it off track. So I'm like, just draw it in, be really clear and write it down.
Yep.
And when you feel yourself heading off in a direction that's got nothing to do with the 3 points, just stop yourself and go, hang on a sec, I can feel I'm just going off on a tangent here. And I think that that's what happens, is that they get off on a tangent and they never draw it back, and then the conversation just finishes.
And I was just thinking as you were saying that, it's so funny because doing a review is like doing a pitch for a client, right? Where people, they don't put enough time and effort preparing for a review.
100%.
And so what ends up happening is they sit down, they're like, oh, what? I mean, how many times have you heard this? Oh, what are we going to talk about today? I mean, that's ironic, right? Because you spend, hours doing a pitch deck to a client to win work, but you're not spending any time with the people doing the work, telling them what success looks like. I mean, it's a bit upside down, but that's the difference in the value and the value where people and business owners place the time. And sometimes they've never been exposed to how to do it properly.
Yeah, great.
And that's also okay. But I don't think it gets the result that they're probably looking for.
Yeah, agree.
Recognition and validation. People want to know their work matters. And I'm going to add to this to say people want to know their work matters and what they're doing is part of a bigger plan and a bigger picture.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first two are around clear expectations of their role and having that honest conversation. This is more about how they fit into the broader picture.
Yeah.
And, that there is an innate human feeling of wanting to belong.
For sure.
And so the more that you can recognise what that looks like for individuals within a business, the more engaged they become in the business. So that's a really critical part of the review process, is to make sure that they feel heard, that they feel seen, and that they understand that their contribution and how that it is part of the growth of the business.
And we always, I mean, part of when we bring in a new client comes on board, we talk about the A to F, F being the point at which you're going to. So many businesses really struggle to articulate what the business is trying to achieve, which means you come back and you have these performance reviews and people feel like that they're not part of anything because you haven't actually defined what they're part of.
Yeah.
And it's, we see, and we're lucky because we get to see it from what it was to what it became. Like it's a really, and that's why obviously we enjoy I enjoy the work. You can speak for yourself. But we enjoy the work because as soon as you start to define a direction, all of a sudden, and you see this, I mean, this is probably change management 101, where you go, the business pulls itself together and all starts sort of pointing in the right direction. And probably even more so, the people that aren't aligned with that direction fall off, which is a really amazing tool because you really want the people that are engaged with the direction and committed to where it's going to be a part of the journey.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily want those people that are, and we see them on occasion where they sort of have sat there for so long and really comfortable with where they are and don't really want to change because they tend to be the ones that are pulling that back.
Yeah.
And so, again, all these things that we're talking about, it's all about what you've done before in order for the performance review for you to be able to give a really great review of somebody and positive and constructive.
Yeah.
But you've got to have all these steps sort of in place before in order for that to be really successful.
Yeah. And I think as part of this sort of third step around that sort of recognition, it's about reinforcing what positive behaviours that you're looking for in the business as well. And I mean, this could open up a whole conversation about values and the behaviours that sit behind values. We're not going to get into that today, but it is an important piece. It's like I would say it's not okay just to deliver on a KPI in your role.
Yep.
It has to go with a behaviour that meets expectation within your business. Now, those behaviours are defined by a business or not, and they're different for every business, but that also becomes a really important piece to make sure that there is an alignment, and that's a real cultural piece around the behaviours that people are displaying in the business as well.
Totally agree. Accountability. Whoa.
Yeah, that would be the fourth one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this comes back to honesty and having tough conversations and being held accountable.
What about this one? This is a scenario which I've had many a times. Pushing out a performance review and just because, it's too busy. I'm too busy. I mean, I look at that and I go, God, it sends a message that it isn't important. And I go, what could be more important than sitting down with your staff? And this, I mean, accountability is an interesting one because it's two-sided, right? It's accountability for the business and the person delivering the performance review, and it's accountability for the person that has been performing and being accountable for that performance, because it goes both ways. And I have seen people finish up at businesses because of that specific thing, which is they didn't feel valued.
I literally was having a conversation with a girlfriend on the weekend about this exact thing, where she had a meeting set with her boss in the diary to talk about, and she's in a business that's going through a fair bit of restructure at the moment. Even more important to really
make the time.
Yeah, really important. Got moved once, and she's like, I understand that, that things do come up. Got moved twice.
0.
And so when it came to the third time where the boss is like, you're going to put that back in? She goes, no. And she's like, why? And she goes, because if you can't value us having that conversation, then I don't want to have the conversation.
I feel like that's turning. We could do a whole section on this performance review into exit interview.
Well, that wasn't a performance review, but I mean, to your point, it's like if you push this out, people very quickly disengage.
Very.
And you probably don't think that. You probably think you have longer as a leader than you actually do in that space.
I should write that down. Longer as a leader. Yeah, that should be one of our topics.
So that's a fourth thing. So we talk accountability.
And the fifth
I love the fifth.
I love this too, future growth and development.
Yeah.
And this kind of goes back to the vision and going back to how that person fits in with the overarching. No, you would be foolish as a leader to think that everyone is just going to stay in the same role for the rest of their life. And I was actually talking with a friend yesterday about that she was wanting to exit out of the business, and the importance of having a structured career progression plan and what that looks like, and there's a partnership model and all these kind of bits and pieces. But it's so funny, as I was talking, I'm like, we've ourselves internally have a plan. We understand that, you've got time and, again, probably not as much time as everyone thinks, but you go, talking about the future growth and development, and that probably links all of the previous ones that we've talked about, because, future growth and development means that you have to be able to give the constructive feedback for them to better themselves. No one's perfect. No one does a job perfectly. They've got to be accountable. Like, there's all those things that sit into, this is that last section that wraps all that review together.
And I would say, I've done 1 million reviews over my career. This is the part that's most important.
Yeah.
And I will say to clients now, if you've done enough work throughout the course of the year with your staff and you've had enough touch points, those first four things that we've just spoken about take very little time in a performance review, because you're just really wrapping up a year. Nothing new's surfacing, or it shouldn't if you've done it well throughout the course of the year.
Correct.
So actually what ends up happening in a great performance review is that gets wrapped up quite quickly, and then the time and effort is actually spent looking forward.
Yep.
Because you can't change what's happened in the past, right? So that part done relatively quickly, and then the time and effort is spent on, where do you want to go? How can we develop you? What does that look like for you?
And also, as an owner, it gives a bit of a pulse check, or whatever you want to call it, with is this person still engaged with where we're trying to take the business? Because sometimes, life happens, right? And people can get disengaged for a whole bunch of different reasons. And you should probably know that before you go into this. But I go, when you start talking about the future, what you're asking your staff member to do is think about that. And if they're not thinking positively about it, there's probably some further conversations that need to have around, regardless of their performance, if you want to call it that. There's the future planning and the future growth of that person. And if they're not necessarily, buying into that, there's probably some more challenging conversations that are coming down the track for that. And it's a good check-in.
Yeah, agree. And again, for all the experience that we've all had in that space, if you genuinely want to keep people engaged and retained in your business, that part is super critical, because that's the part that gets people excited about what's next.
All right. Salary reviews, Sharron.
This is the part that everyone gets nervous about. And in fact, what happens often is that people just stick their heads in the sand and go, I'm just not even going to bring it up.
Or they just give a token salary increase. It's just probably even worse. But there's pressure. There's pressure on the people who run or own the business or manage the business, and pressure on from the employee, and particularly around, if you're given a good performance review, there's an expectation that they will be rewarded. And inevitably, from my experience, the employee always overestimates the reward, and the employer always underestimates the reward. And I have seen a great person given a reasonable salary increase, and both parties were super unhappy. And I go, that is unfortunate, because the process wasn't done the way that it could have done. It was done the best that they could, given the experience of the people. But I go, it's you nearly go, you're better off just not doing one.
That's what happens, though.
Right? And then you go, but then you get this resentment build up. And then once you do have it, the expectations are even higher. So I suppose there's lots of things around that. But, some questions that we always ask is, should the salary increase happen every year? CPI versus performance. I've got a lot to talk about there. Loyalty versus contribution. Market pressures, which is fine. Retention concerns. A retention bonus. I just
talk about, we'll unpack them all.
Disagree, and commercial sustainability and transparency. So I suppose, realistically, we go, what salary reviews should be based on? Yeah,
we would probably start with what impact are they having on the business
Yeah.
from a contribution point of view?
Yeah.
And I understand why performance reviews and salary reviews do get tied in, because people go, my contribution to the business looks like this, and I've performed in a way that we've already discussed and it's been great.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's the right place to start, though,
Yep.
in terms of
Yep.
going, what is my contribution and performance?
Yeah. And I suppose you need to be able to define the impact of that person rather than their team, or
Yep.
you do a team and person based scenario. But yeah, totally agree.
Yeah, I mean, and that is about outcomes. It's quite tangible. What did they actually achieve? Are they accountable? Are they reliable? Are they creating value back to the business? We talk about that a lot. What value are they actually bringing to the business? How consistent have they been?
Yeah.
2 months of, and what often happens is the last 4 weeks before this kind of discussion, everyone's smashing out as much work as they can, hoping that that's the only thing that someone thinks about. But it's like, well, hang on a sec. What was the 12 months?
Yeah, yeah.
What did that look like?
Totally agree. And growth in capabilities and responsibility. This is the old, and I've had this done to me before. I've been here for 3 years. And I was laughing, but someone made a really great comment, and it says, you can play tennis every day and not make it to the Australian Open. And I thought that is a great way to have a think of it, because in the end, the business, yes, it rewards people being part of the journey, but in the end, it's performance, right? It's growth. And if you're doing the same thing, if you're doing the same thing in the same capacity, there is, we can get to this, but I go, how do you reward someone for that? Because what you're doing is you're rewarding them for being there. And I would say you're paying them to be there. You're rewarding them for growth and performance.
And I think, again, this gets back to, if people understand that that's how it's going to be reviewed, that there is that growth factor, then it just changes the dynamics automatically. But I think, to your point, most people go, well, I'm here a year. Now, the only, I would put a caveat over that and say, someone that starts in a role, that first 12 months, you are doing things often for the first time in a business.
Yep.
And I will go, the real value add that an employee starts to give is in that second year, because they've gone through all the firsts. Are they more valuable to the business? Yeah, they should be. Are they doing the same role that they were employed to do a year ago? Yeah. Are they doing it better? They should be, because they're 12 months into it. So, their role might be the same though. Have they grown in the role, or they've learnt the role?
We could talk a lot about that. Market, market reality, right? We had to get a tradesperson over, and I think it was a $300 call out with a minimum of a $400 fee. And I'm just like, I've done that 6 years ago, and it was about a quarter of that price. And so there's a reality of the value of the person in the marketplace, and inevitably, if you don't keep up with that, people go, and people are smart, staff, employees, business owners. There comes a point, and this whole buyback, and this is something that I'm, when somebody goes, you know what, I'm going to hand my resignation in, and they go, oh, well, hang on, let me give you 50 grand more. For me, I go, hang on a minute. Why didn't you give me 50 grand 6 months ago? Why wasn't that proactive, as opposed to now you're only giving it to me to keep me and retain me? I go, that's a really good dictator to say, yes, not all businesses and not all business owners are great at that, but this understanding and making sure that you're keeping up and on track with that is important for maintaining, your staff members at a level that they need to be at.
Yeah, and I would have this conversation with my clients around, there is a risk though that if you are not paying market rate, then it becomes a more complex conversation.
Yep.
And the retention factor becomes greater.
Totally agree. Business performance and sustainability. why didn't I get my bonus this year?
Because the business has no money and it can't afford to pay you.
But I did really well.
Oh, I know. It's a tough one, isn't it?
It's a really tough one.
A really tough one. And I mean, I've been in this situation. In my years in travel where it's very volatile, you can have 11 months of greatness and do everything that you were supposed to do. And
one shocking
when
month.
Twin Towers come down, suddenly, the business is in no position to be paying anything. And that's tough. But I think that it comes back, and we're not going to unpack all the cultural elements of a business that you've created, but it really does come back into that and go, at the end of the day, a business has to be sustainable in order to be paying out
Correct.
increased salaries,
Business
bonuses,
comes
whatever.
first. It has
So
to.
there are times, and if you've created a great culture, people will get through those. If you have not, people resent and leave.
And there is a great firm that I know quite well that I think did an incredible job over COVID, and it's quite a big company, and the way that CEO managed that and restricted payouts because there wasn't anything to the uproar of the 600 people that work there. It's a great lesson. That's a great story, but it's not one for me to tell.
Well, and I've been in that position whereby we the executive team went to a 3-day salary paid week. We were working 5 days but got paid for 3. No one got paid incentives. But as the business recovered, the owners of that business, and this was a global company, we're talking 2,500 people globally, privately owned. As the business recovered, though, they paid everything back.
Yeah, so good.
So there's a way to do it well.
Values, behaviour and the cultural impact.
We've probably just talked about that a little bit around. So this is
yeah.
about when we're talking salary reviews. It's like, how have you gone in that space? We've talked about positive behaviours and aligning to company values if there are, whether they're written down or not. Are you behaving like a team? Are you doing the right thing for the business?
Yep. And probably an interesting one for me, future potential. Because it's staff and like everything, they're an investable thing, right? You've got to invest and you've got to nurture and grow and all those kind of things. And that probably goes back to that conversation about the vision of the business, and if they're not aligned, that would say you would have to say that they're probably lacking the future potential because they're not buying into it. And they might have all the skills in the world, but if they don't buy into the vision, how do you extrapolate those skills and turn it into value?
Yeah. So if we sort of reflect on that, I go when businesses are looking at salary reviews, it should be a combination. It should be a combination of the performance of the individual, the growth of the individual, how they've fit into the values and the behaviours of the business, but also the reality of where the business is at. Yeah, which is tough.
And it's tough as a high performing individual employee to swallow that pill.
Yeah.
Right. Segment time. The Juno split.
Yeah, new to the potty.
Oh, wow. Just taking a bit of license there. Whoa. Relax, Sharron, relax.
Yeah, we're going to bring this in. It's sort of where we tackle.
It's actually really just so Sharron and I can argue against each other.
No, we're gonna tackle business topics where people are divided.
No more divided than you and me.
Well, I think that chances are that we are going to be divided, and there'll be chances are that we're aligned. Correct. So, no perfect answers.
Great. What are we talking about?
Okay. So, we've already touched on this in the episode, but the Juno split. Should employees receive a salary increase every year to keep up with inflation, regardless of company performance?
Would you like me to go first?
You can go first.
Absolutely not.
Okay, so you go absolutely. I go. I think part of that is real. I think
part of it is real, but I go there's the expectation of an increase regardless of anything else. That is just, and I would say, and it depends on what kind of culture you have and whatever, I would say that would be an interesting thing for me to handle. for you to handle because it doesn't represent the community that I would be looking for in a business and the culture that I would be looking for.
But if employees are experiencing cost of living pressure, which everyone is experiencing that at the moment,
Yep.
that's regardless of how the business is performing.
It is, but you go, you do it for one, you do it for all, right? So you go, are you putting a business in jeopardy? Are you putting the boat in jeopardy to appease the rowers kind of scenario? There's a reality that happens, and you go, there's probably some more questions around this. Do you go, does the ownership not take a salary? Where does that?
Yeah,
Well,
I've done that in a role.
I've done that in a role too. But you go, does an ownership not take a salary to pay a CPI increase? I mean, the whole thing is that as an owner of a business and starting a business, there is a risk that you take, and that risk has to be returned in value, and in this case is monetary value. So you're saying, I'm taking all the risk, I'm giving up my salary, so I'm not getting a reward for the ship to keep on sailing. Well, there is no ship. So
but I would go, but should people be punished for whether it's a leadership or whether it's market conditions? Should they be punished for that?
Well, I mean, it depends, right? Because I would be saying if you gave the opportunity for the business to step up and were clear and you talked about this and you talked that the business and everyone was communicated that the business wasn't doing well and nobody stepped up or limited people stepped up to not allow the business to be successful, I don't think that that's punishment. I think that that's people that aren't prepared to go the little bit extra for the wholeness of the business, because that has to happen sometimes, and it doesn't happen all the time. And if you're a business owner that makes that happen all the time, then that's not great either. But I think that and this is this whole thing about the relationship between the owners and the managers and the employees in a business. A great relationship has give and take.
Yeah, great. And I think it comes back to there's a transparency piece in that.
100%.
And if you're being honest and transparent through the whole journey, then it should never come to that. And you would be having open and honest conversations and getting to even a middle ground or whatever it might look like.
And I mean, but I suppose that there's always this interesting thing, right? Which is businesses not being successful, right? Business owner goes out and buys a new car, right? Now, that business owner may have other investments and assets that they sold or chose to purchase a new car. The visibility or the view of what that looks like is super challenging. And there's a humbleness as a business owner that you have to understand the peaks and troughs, and you have to be able to work with that, to understand that there is, regardless of whether you like it or not, or regardless of whether you're in the wrong or the right, there's a visibility aspect. And, I've got a mate who was an employee for a guy, very similar scenario, and he quit his job, that it was a great job just because he felt that he wasn't getting the amount of money that he thinks he should, given that the business owner was doing all these things. And I go, I don't necessarily agree with that, but we probably were coming from a couple of different angles. So anyway, so wrapping up, Sharron.
I mean, I think we started this episode talking around end of financial year, a business actually getting to this point in the year, doing a reflection piece, what worked, what didn't work, reflecting honestly and not just sort of, a surface level look, sort of a bit of a deep dive. We then sort of talked about the performance review, going through the elements of what makes a good performance review, what owners should be looking for, and then, avoiding or not avoiding the salary conversation.
Nice. Well, I suppose, and you've written something here that I'm going to say, but
you don't have to say it.
Great cultures aren't built through comfort; they're built through clarity. And I would add on to that if you're consistently talking to your team, performance reviews and salary reviews become easier because everyone knows what's coming. So, anyway, we'll wrap it up there. High fives.